Guys, what I'm doing today is I'm gonna install this MaxAir kit. I've been working on this compressor that's back there in the corner. I finally got that set up. I have a similar setup in my other shop and it's worked out great, flawless, no complaints whatsoever. So there's a couple varieties of these. They have another kit and it's basically big aluminum pipe and you can get it in various sizes and it hooks up to little air fittings that they provide. And this specific set here, this is 3/4 inch. And basically what it is aluminum tube and it's reinforced on the inside and outside with some, I believe it's HDPE plastic. So it's fairly compliant in terms of being able to form it and roll it out straight. It's got an aluminum core in it, which makes it a little bit stronger and more resistant to rupture. They also have a smaller kit, and I think it uses like kind of a PEX-like tubing with little push fittings. Like I said, I used this one before. It's really easy to install. All the fittings and stuff are good quality, and plus it's only 200 bucks. And so for what you get, it's definitely worth the money. I looked at a bunch of different options on my main shop. Copper pipe, I think, would be the best way to go, but the amount of work required to sweat all the pipes in and cut them and bends and fittings, it would have gotten really expensive and been time consuming to install. Probably would have looked cool, but another thing I like about this is it's super modular. If I have like a run of pipe that goes from here to somewhere else, and I just want to click into one of these lines and, like a manifold and, run like an extra circuit out, it's super easy to do that. Where, if you had like black steel pipe or copper, you'd wind up having to sort of dismantle a section of it and then re-engineer everything. You might have to, cut the tubes and rethread them and do some stuff like that. So I guess the bottom line is the main benefit of a system like this is it's super easy to put up and add on to it later. And that's something that's important to me because I always start off like, with whatever basic thing that I dream up, and then later I'm like, it'd be cool if I could add another outlet over there or whatever. I like to preserve that ability to expand later, and this is something that allows you to do that. Okay, this is all the stuff that comes in the box, and I'll try to explain what each one of them are. The first thing is the pipe. You could look in here. You see that little aluminum ring? So this gives it that capability to carry the pressure. You're not reliant exclusively on the plastic that can bend plastically or deform over time or under heat. And so that's kind of what makes this better than like a PEX pipe, for example. Comes with 20 of these mounting doodads here, and there's a single fastener hole in the middle, so you could just screw this into a stud, and then it just compression fits like just, really easily under this pipe, and that's how you hold it in. You can buy extras of these. I think they sell kits of 20. I can't remember how much they cost, but they weren't that bad. You get 2 T fittings. These 2 T's basically mean that you're gonna have the ability to drop 2 different circuits off of your main manifold line, and then in your wherever you terminate it, you'll put your third one. Usually, you could buy more of these fittings. That's where it kind of gets expensive. They do nickel and dime you a little bit. I think these, like for example, these fittings are probably close to 20 to 30 bucks. I mean, they're good. They're a lot more than plumbing fittings. I mean, there's a little bit more to them, right? So the air hose gets pressed into the air hose. So like, and you push it in. It's got some barbs in there and 2 O-rings. They do give you, it looks like 2 extra sets or 4 total O-rings in case you break one, putting it on. I've never broken one. So this collar goes on here, ferrule goes on, and then your fitting gets inserted into this, and when it screws down, there's sort of an angulated face on the inside of this thing that bears against the edge of this, and then this ferrule has an angle face on here too, and on the back side, and that gets bared out on angle face on back here on this wall. And so what it does is it compresses all these together, and it grabs this ferrule and squeezes it so that it gives you the tension connection on the end of this so it doesn't slip off. And then your air seal is inside of here. You don't need pipe dope or anything like that to install these. I do use pipe dope on the free end that gets installed into these fittings. but you don't need anything on this side where the O-rings go. They just push in there. And to be honest, I leave my compressor on 24 hours a day. I use it frequently. I've never had an air leak. My compressor does not discharge like when I'm not using it. I've never noticed that it ever cycles at any other time than when I'm using it. So if there is any leakage, it's so slow that it's unnoticeable. So I guess the bottom line is this system seals up pretty good as long as you tighten it. I think one of the things you got to be careful with is not to over tighten it. So you get these 3 outlets. They're wider than a stud, so I usually make like a little plywood bracket that gets installed into the stud, and then I install this onto the flat square shaped piece of plywood just to give it a good base to get installed on. You could mount these with the line inlet coming from the backside or outlet coming from the backside for that matter. Like if you're going through a wall or something, you could connect this so that your air line in connects at the back. Then they have these little brass plugs here, so if you're not using that, you can close them off. And then on this side, the supply line comes up here in the top. One thing that doesn't come with these is the quick disconnects for your compressor lines. I mean, it's probably better, honestly. That way you can kind of pick what you want. Just plan for that. One other cool thing is that these outlets here have or valves so that you could turn the air off at the source. Really what I use this for is a drain line. Honestly, I haven't had any issues with these pipes getting humidity where it accumulate in the lines. I use their air filter, and I mean, I live in South Carolina. It's really humid here, and I wind up dumping gallons of water out of my compressor sometimes, but I never have any of this getting any kind of water getting in my air. So this is the air filter that they use. I think they might have more than one of them. This one kind of fits up with the system. It's for a 3/4 inch input. Like I said, I've had pretty good experience with the other one I have. You can control air pressure here, and it's got a air filter / water separator in here. And so this cup could fill up with water, and you can push up on this and let the water out. So this set comes with this tool. I guess it's probably a universal tool they have for all their kits. Like you basically stab it in this hole, it kind of opens it up a little bit, and then there's little metal pieces on here that chamfer the inside and outside of the pipe. And it basically makes it easy for you to, insert these fittings into it. When I'm finished with this install, I'll show you the system I have set up in my other shop. I've had it probably for about a year to 2 years now. Like I said, I'm super happy with it. And to be honest, I was a little reluctant at first. The idea of having plastic, for whatever reason, just seems crazy, but it works. One of the other things I want to say though is, so this is the RapidAir kit. They give you instructions on how to put everything together. There's plenty of videos online showing how to make the connections and all that stuff. But there are other companies out here that sell similar looking hardware. Read the reviews on those on Amazon. I see a lot of people complaining that all their fittings leak and so on. And I mean, it's like $40-50 of price difference. And I'm telling you, man, just like, you don't want to have to deal with that. Spend the extra $50, get peace of mind, because you screwing around spending like 2 hours trying to troubleshoot some kind of off-brand system. You're gonna lose money in the end if you calculate out the amount of time and aggravation you're gonna have. So I bought this on Grainger. I want to say it was like around $209. I got free shipping with it, and so it was. You could get it on Amazon too. I think it's a little more expensive. All right, let's get going. Okay. to get this started, the way I would recommend doing this is locate where you want these first, put them in place, and then you can work out your routing. And then you'll put all these clips in place. I space these maybe, I don't know, 5 to 6 feet apart. If you have like bends or any crazy features where you're making elevation changes or something like that, you probably want to add some. Also, you want to put these in a stud. And if you can't reach a stud, you want to have kind of board that picks up a stud and then put them on that board so they're well tied in. You don't want to pull these out of the wall, especially these fittings here. I mean, you might wind up putting some force onto these fittings, and you don't want to run the risk of pulling it out. Which, like if you had some kind of crazy situation like that, it could like cause a rupture or allow the pipe to break free here. So, okay, this is what I was trying to explain earlier. So if you imagine like a 2x4, a stud in your wall, this fitting here has 4 holes in it, and so it doesn't span that. So you might get 2 fasteners in, which is probably adequate, but you're not gonna pick up all 4. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use some of this excess plywood here and just cut off up to here, maybe like a couple inches higher, and then just screw this into this plywood, and then I'll be able to screw the plywood in to the stud, and they get all 4 fasteners in here. Just feel like it'll look cleaner, be more structurally acceptable. This is how I'm gonna do it. I'm just gonna rip some of these out on the table saw here, so I have a few of them available, and then I'll go ahead and get started. So if you want to do like a 90-degree turn, the best way to do that is with a bend if you have room for it. The radius that they pack this in the box, the inner radius there is around 1 foot. I mean the inner diameter. I mean, if they could pack it tighter without causing problems, they would. So I'm thinking that's probably pretty close. You can bend it tighter, but you run the risk of inducing stresses of the pipe. And so that's just what I'm gonna use. 6-inch bend radius is what we're gonna call it. So if this diameter here is 12 inches, let's say you're gonna go up a wall like this, and then you wanna go into a bend and go straight. You wanna put a clamp here and here to help keep this radius in shape and keep the hose from coming off of here. Like if you put your clamps too far apart, that radius will collapse and it'll just bend over. Yeah, I bought a little extra bag of these pipe clamps. I would go ahead and buy some of these unless you just got a really simple setup, because you don't want to short the number of these you use. They're recommending minimum spacing 5 feet, and if you're doing like a perfectly straight run, that might be adequate. But if you're bending corners and going around stuff, you're gonna go through these pretty quick. And so it's a small expense, and you might as well just pony up when you buy the kit, buy the extra stuff so you're not screwing around waiting on Amazon to show up 2 weeks later with the rest of the stuff you need to finish the job. Here, so I have this supply line pipe. My hose is going to start here, and I'm gonna take a bend and bend it around that way. Now I might need some kind of intermittent support later to keep that radius from trying to roll up. But I think because this is sort of a generous enough bend, I'll be able to make it work with where I have it. And then I have another one right after that because I'm going into bend number 2. And I'm gonna bend up this way. And I'm kind of going at like a little bit of a diagonal because I have a stud right there. And the stud on the wall is not lined up with the stud in the ceiling. I'm going into a bend and I'm doing 2 things here. I'm stepping up and away from the ceiling so I can bridge over that electric routing. So I've started to introduce these little plywood fittings here. And that like basically helps me deal with the mitigation change. And I'm gonna start, because I have this bend and that elevation change all at the same time, I added a couple extra brackets here just to manage that bend, and then this, and I need something to receive it after it sort of goes over here. And then the next one's spaced at 5 foot. Okay, and then I'm gonna run this to the wall. And I'm gonna put a T-fitting in there. The T is gonna be facing this way and this way. So I'll have a branch circuit that comes down here off of that T into that guy. And this is for a hose reel up here. And so that's why it's mounted so high. And then I have this other fitting here. And so the T, I'm gonna put the T right next to that guy. So I got my next bracket. Then I put a little intermittent bracket here because I'm going into another bend and I have a pretty tight curve. So I'm gonna try to see if I can make that bend go around the corner. And then I have another little bracket down here so I can accept that radius on the other side. And I'm hoping everything sits down and behaves properly. And depending on where it winds up, I might put another bracket on there, just, you know, keep it so it's clenched up, because it's gonna have a tendency, because there's a radius on there, to fall this way. All right, and then I have my fitting here. If you just measure from here to the ceiling corner and then over, you'll wind up with a little bit of excess because that radius, you know, it kind of shortcuts around the corner, and it'll give you like a little bit of excess. And then I'll put a little bit onto that, maybe a few inches, because you don't want to cut it short. It's easier to cut some off than have to go, you know, get another piece. But and then I'm going to start the routing here. I'm going to go up and then I'm going to formulate that bend and kind of get it in there and click it into that guy. And if I can't get it to sit down here, I'll put another bracket in here. But I really need to lay that on there and figure out where it's going to be in space before I put the bracket on, because it's kind of hard to predict how it's going to bridge from that bracket to this bracket. And then it'll go to here, and then I'll stretch it out so that it terminates in plane with that guy. So that'll be like the first line I put in. And then the second one, I'll put, like I said, I put the T here, and I'll start running this guy this way, and I'll go all the way to the end. So anyway, that's the plan. And like I said, I'm starting at these outlets and working my way up, and then I can do the like final connection at the top. It's too hard to get everything to span over, like if you're starting at the top, because you have the weight of the pipe that's like sort of pulling it out of these. And so it's easier to kind of like stick it in the first one and support it as it goes up, and then you can kind of gradually, the weight will dissipate and it'll support itself a little better. So I'm going to do the same thing over here, work my way up. Anyway, that's the way I think about it. It's the easiest way to kind of rough it in is just have my kid, you know, I've rolled off like, I don't know, a few coils and had her walk out. And so there was this part that was like spiraled, and I just kept pulling on it and turning it and unwinding it until I got it pretty damn straight. And then there's some humps in here that I was able to like sort of push out and straighten out to the extent possible. I know they sell like a expensive machine that'll straighten these out. You can make some kind of jig to do it, but guess what? If you have a small garage like me, you're gonna be able to keep this straight for about 3 minutes before you have to, you know, take it up the wall and it's gonna get bent again. I'm not that worried about it right now, because as soon as I'm done cutting off 122 inches or whatever, I'm gonna have to take it in this garage and wrap and go around the corner with it. And so it's not gonna stay straight anyway. As I route it up the wall, I can gradually just work the kinks out of it and straighten it out, and it should look pretty good at the end. So my first dimension that I'm gonna cut out is 189. So I had somebody hold the tape measure down here, try to stretch it to the extent possible, and then cut at that number. Because it's have waves in it, it's gonna introduce like a little bit of excess, which is fine. It may be like 6 inches that I'll throw in the trash. You wanna give a little slop here, because if you underscope the length, you'll wind up throwing like a lot of hose away. Okay, I got these little cutters here. I just happen to have these for cutting PVC, and they work pretty good on this. They give you a pair of these in the box, but they're a little skinnier, and I can't remember if they're painful. They seem pretty sharp, but anyway, I'm just gonna use this. So here's my Sharpie mark. You can barely see it because it's blue. I'm just gonna stick it in here, and that's where I'm cutting. Yeah, so I'm just gonna cut it just like that. See how it kind of give you a little bit of resistance in the beginning, and then boom, done. Okay, they give you this tool here. It's got a deburr tool on the end, and this cuts a chamfer on the inside and outside. Also, this little pipe here will open it up for anything that collapsed during the cutting process. So you just stick that guy in there, and you just turn it a few times until you stop getting resistance, and then your pipe you got a chamfer. I just want to give you a little shot of what the chamfered pipe looks like. You see that it's got sort of that lead in now, and that helps it to slide down over that air fitting that you have in the wall. And then also another thing it does is it evens up the edge of the pipe. So if you cut it so that it wasn't straight, it cleans up. That's what I was saying before. I got this pipe that I drug in here, and so imagine a world where I straighten this out so it was like perfectly uniformly straight. I still need to take it back up here and form radius onto this guy and then drape it across here. And by the time I get done with this, that perfectly straight pipe is gonna be jacked up. So that was my point. You know, I think that was like a primary focus of a lot of people that I saw on the internet, focused on getting the pipe arrow straight. And honestly, it doesn't matter, like at this stage of the installation. So I have this first end of the hose in there. I have the second one in that second little saddle clamp. And then I just got up on the ladder there, and I had her feed the hose towards me, and I just used my hand to push that radius into the corner to develop that arc. And I'll be able to swing this into the hose up and over. That's kind of how I'm doing it. Okay, to keep this end lined up, I got this ferrule right here, and then the nut on this side, and then I have this pretty well perpendicular into that hole. So I'm just gonna slip this down and make it finger tight, and then I'll tighten up with the wrench when we're done, and that'll hold it in there while I'm screwing around with it. You may want to check this connection later, make sure you didn't pull it out. Okay, this is the first little leg here. So if I wanted to, there's a little bit of droop on that side, but I could work that out by hand if I cared. This bracket I dropped down so I could start this radius here, and it goes straight down that wall. Hey, if you're working by yourself, sometimes you got to do stuff like this where I have 3 zip ties. One's wrapped around the top of the bracket. There's 2 nubs on both sides that like you can captivate the top zip tie, and then you can trap another zip tie hanging off of this side and one hanging off of this zip tie, and then you crisscross the legs. And what that'll make it is that it'll basically hold this in the saddle clamp, because I got this long run here, and I'm gonna be screwing around with that fitting down there. And what'll happen is I'll mess around with that, and it'll pop out on this one. And so if I zip tie them in, they're, like I said, captivated. You could still come back later and adjust the length and stuff if I want to get that sag out, for example. But anyway, this can save you, especially if you're working by yourself and you're fighting getting these in. Yeah. Okay, I got this little junction here, and this is what I was saying. I have like, 12 inches of excess, kind of playing for that. So I went ahead and made a connection here, and I tightened this down so it's like this end of the pipe secure. Might want to check it later, but it's fairly tight, so it's going to hold the pipe in place. I got my bracket in there, so it's going to help. I've developed the contour, and then I've trimmed the pipe equal to this plane here, and then put it in and installed this in hand tight. For this other pipe here, is you need to cut it about even with the back plane of that little T section. So like right about here. Okay, so I have a little excess. I'll be able to push this pipe out that way into that radius and just sort of blend it all in. But I'm gonna cut that, and then I need to like put that chamfer on the inside of it, and then I can tighten all this up, and then it'll be secure. Okay, here's how that joint wound up. I went ahead and tightened all those fittings now. So It should be airtight. It's on there nice, got a nice little radius. It's not riding the wall. I got a good amount of support from this bent leg here. And so it's supporting that fitting. And then I got the clamp right next to it, so it should work out pretty good. Yeah. Okay, I got all my routing done. Got that switch over there, outlet. It goes all the way down. I got some zip ties up there to help that thing keep from falling out. I got some there. We have an elevation change and it goes underneath the electric conduit. Then I have this little bend that went down. I had to zip tie that one in the corner just to keep that radius tucked in. I could probably push that up a little tighter if I needed to, but I think I'm just gonna leave it. And then I have, basically I'm going tangent right into where I'm going, this air regulator. It's a little crooked, I'm gonna straighten it out. It got moved around a little bit while I was screwing with it. One of the things that bothers me is this rubber hose right here is contacting this thing. I'm gonna put another bracket in with some kind of hose clamp that clamps it in that position. Yeah, but this is pretty much done. I need to get some, these little outlets here. The quick disconnects. This is a 1/2 inch MPT. And so I got 3 of those on order. I like the ones that RapidAir sells because basically you pull the collar towards you to spit the tool out. And then to put the tool in, you just stab it in the hole. So it's easier than screw around with those collars where you're having to push them back and stuff. Hey, so I just wanted to show you one of these outlets, what it looks like when you're finished here. I used RapidAir fittings, but I like these because you could just pull on it and the hose comes out like that, and then you push it back in to put it in. And so it's super easy. There's this valve, so if I want to bleed this line, all right, let's see if any water comes out of there.